Hey everyone, I wanted to give you a little bit of encouragement today and a challenge from Philippians and Second Corinthians, talking about humility and how God works through us even in our weaknesses. So in my Bible reading and as youth leaders, we're reading through the book of Philippians, and we're going to start that as a staff as well. But in Philippians chapter 2, which I was reading today, it talked all about the humility of Jesus Christ. It says in Philippians 2 verse 3, "Do nothing out of selfish ambition or vain conceit. Rather, in humility, value others above yourselves, not looking to your own interests, but each of you to the interests of others." Now, that's a challenging verse. The following verses after it talk about how Jesus did this and how he set aside his position in heaven to come and become a man. Still fully God, but to become a man because he served us. And what a beautiful image that is. God's humility is fully on display in that. And it's one of the most amazing character qualities of him and who he is in our lives. So as I was thinking about that, I was thinking of how in a time like a quarantine in this season of life, it's easy for our character flaws and our pride to rise up. When we're around the same people for a longer amount of time, when we're under more stress at work or trying to figure out how to make ends meet, it's a lot more difficult to stay humble, to serve others. We can go on frantically trying to get what we need. But instead of doing that and having that mindset where it's about us or pride comes in, we're supposed to consider others' needs above our own. As I was thinking of that, I wanted to parallel that with another passage in 2 Corinthians. And in 2 Corinthians chapter 4, it talks about the same idea. It gives us a little bit of insight into how to keep this humble perspective, how to serve other people instead of ourselves. And what it says in chapter 4 in 2 Corinthians, verse 5, it says, "What we preach is not ourselves, but Jesus Christ as Lord, and ourselves as your servants for Jesus' sake." You know, I think when you look at the hierarchy of that there, we have a choice. We can either serve our pride, we can serve ourselves, we can become that which we seek to acquire things for or meet the needs of, or we can preach Jesus Christ. We can put him on the pedestal, on display, and let him meet our needs. And then with everything he's given us, use those things to serve other people and to meet the needs of others around us for Jesus' sake. Then it goes on and it says, "For God who said, 'Let light shine out of darkness,' has made light shine in our hearts to give us the light of the knowledge of God's glory displayed in the face of Christ." Then this next verse is kind of the hinge of what I want to hit. It says, "We have this treasure in jars of clay to show this all-surpassing power is from God and not from us." I think the real key to being humble is realizing that we're broken, frail vessels and we need God to work through us. I think a lot of times in our society and in our lives, we could put on this really tough shell where we have it put together, where we don't have any flaws, at least on the surface. Many times we do that. But the struggle with that is when we hide our weaknesses and we don't let anybody see them, we're in a sense masking the ability for God's light to shine through even with those weaknesses. I look at the disciples and they had struggles, they had character flaws, they had issues that they couldn't really overcome themselves. But even because they were broken, God worked in them in miraculous ways. And Jesus was able to shine through in the darkness. So the jars of clay are our bodies, our frail selves. And I want to view this much more in the character flaw sense, right? So before the disciples knew Jesus, they were living for themselves. They were not pursuing all that God was. They were maybe looking for him, but it was God who called them. When God called them and accomplished great things through them, and their character started to change and become more like Jesus, it was such evidence of a miracle, right? It was such evidence of somebody else doing something in them. So in our lives, if we struggle with humility, we struggle to become more like Jesus, we struggle with putting others' needs above our own, We struggle with whatever it is because we're frail and broken. Paul's not telling us to go and broadcast your weaknesses to the world, but he is telling us to be transparent. Because when we offer our weaknesses to God, when he actually changes us and works through us and changes our character, when the Spirit produces fruits of the Spirit, love, joy, peace, patience, self-control, when those things start happening and the world looks at our lives and they say, wow, that person before they knew Jesus had no self-control. And now they're talking about Jesus because they're proclaiming him as Lord, and I see them much more controlled. Or temper. Beforehand, they just lost their temper like that, but now I see something different in them that wasn't them before. It gives all the glory and attributes all the power to Jesus Christ. So I guess as I sum this up, I want to encourage you to not be afraid of your weaknesses, not being afraid to present them to the Lord, and ask that God would work through them. And who are you proclaiming in your life? Are you saying, God, I want to proclaim you as Lord, and I'm going to be your servant, and I want you to use the gifts, abilities, the resources you've given me to serve other people. We can serve ourselves or we can serve Jesus. Those two won't happen at the same time, right? We have that choice as disciples for what to do. So that's my challenge for you. My encouragement for you is that God can use broken vessels to do amazing things. Sometimes the change is slow, but offer yourselves to him as instruments of righteousness, and the Holy Spirit will work in you to perform and to accomplish God's purposes. We love you guys. We're praying for you. We can't wait till we're back together again soon.